Brother, are you all right?
No, I am not all right. I just shared a bottle of Kanar with Damar. That rhymes.
You're drunk.
Of course I'm drunk.
Guten Abend, everyone! Welcome to, this week's episode of Schadenfreude. Yeah, I decided to share my torment this week, so for those not in the Discord server, consider yourselves lucky, because we kinda tortured everyone on Wednesday night, seeing as how, if I was gonna be watching this movie, I'm gonna make these two fucks watch the movie, and hey, while we're at it, why not let everyone watch it along with us? So that was Wednesday's first movie for the entertainment night stuff that we do regularly on the Discord server. So yeah, my first viewing, I wasn't alone. I got to share in the pain with other people. It helps. It really does. But in another little bit of housekeeping before we get going, hey Furball, hey Jay, do you guys want to know what's on deck for next week?
Oh,
What?
please. I won't be available next week.
Oh, you should try to watch in though, because I think you're going to enjoy this. We're having a follow-up to last week's episode.
Ooh.
Okay.
Same topic or different genre?
Same topic, a direct follow-up to the smackdown that was attempted to be, because we have a viewer who was pointing out that it may have been apparent that one of the people in the discussion was not as knowledgeable as they initially played themselves off to be.
I'll admit it was me.
Close. It was on that side of the debate. So this will be interesting. Johnny will have an opportunity to come back and join us because Muttley, the infamous LRJ88 from the chat, is going to have quite the criticism for Johnny and what he did and did not bring to the table last week. So that'll be fun. It will be rather illuminating to people on just how pervasive the Star Wars franchise and lore actually is. But now that I've... You know what? What do you guys have going on coming up?
Go ahead, Furball.
I'm going to be gone for a couple of weeks, so I may be able to poke my head in next week. I don't know. I'll be extremely opposite time zones. That's about all I can say. I'll try to be here, but can't promise.
And Jay, what have you been working on? I know you've had a few projects in the works in the background.
Well, I did try to post a video the other day. Unfortunately, the copyright owners of Monty Python did not like my selective editing to a skit of theirs. So I will make the link available to those that I think will get a kick out of it. But other than that, I'm not too worried about it. I'm not going to fight the copyright. But
now, did they just claim it or strike it?
Claim it. So there's no
Okay.
adverse effect to my channel. So we're good there. It's just that they've blocked it in all territories.
Those bastards.
Yeah.
So it's all good. So I'm working on apparently my favorite channel to have fun with on YouTube posted a new video, which sounds like just a redo with some more updated statistics. Has redone their intro topic. So I'm going to be going over that and seeing what the differences are, and got a new semi-intro for it to go with it too. So we'll see. I'm actually cutting that together right now.
Fascinating. That would be... And I'm surprised neither of you have caught on to what I'm actually doing. Fuck!
I'm not paying attention to that screen.
Oh, no, it's... You know what? Let's just rip the Band-Aid off and get into it even more. Because... Yes, for those who haven't caught on to the schedule and may have missed it in the thumbnail, yeah, we have finally hit the end of the actual Star Trek movies, which...
The actual Star Trek movies.
The unfortunate end. Because I this will be reiterated many times throughout, they should have ended with the prior movie.
This is what you need to survive.
Move it slightly to the right. There we go. Yes. Why do you think we're immediately following this with VTW?
So that way I don't have to get up and move?
That too. But so, with that... Oh, you fucker resized it.
I didn't resize anything.
No, the...
Oh, did I?
The capture's resized, so...
Oh, sorry. Yep, I moved around a little bit.
And doink. And
Now he's going to try and resize it on you
doink.
while you're resizing it there.
There. Now we're good again. Alright. So, for those who don't know, yes, we... a couple weeks ago did Star Trek Insurrection, which was a lot better than many of us remembered it being. But now...
Yeah, see, you get our hopes up. With Insurrection, you're like, oh, this was a shitty movie. And then you watch it, you're like, this was pretty good. And then you walk into Nemesis with that, you know what? I thought Insurrection was a shitty movie. Nemesis, I thought was a shitty movie. It's going to be good, too. No, doesn't hold up to that standard.
Oh, hell. Oh. Here... I got a really unique addition to this one that I wonder if the others have joined along with me in this sentiment. Doesn't it kind of make you even more angry after watching this, after having already seen another addition to the claimed Star Trek canon? A particular 10-episode installation of it?
You mean one that supposedly takes place after this one?
Mm-hmm.
That recently... Well, when I say recently...
Before. Sorry, dad joke.
Yeah. But, yeah, I mean... I can see where...
I mean, we had 7 of 9 in that. I mean, there's that ray of sunshine.
Well, here's the thing. With that series, it was a perpetual gut punch, followed by pats on the back. Oh, no, it's going to be okay. It's going to be okay. And here's another gut punch. So let's see where all of that started with.
So shall we?
Sadly, yes.
Unfortunately.
So it's been a while. I think I watched this like a year ago, and so my memory wasn't fresh on this particular movie as I went through it. And even as it starts, it has a different feel. There's just something off. Yes, it's just like this isn't my Star Trek. Very creative intro, but
it's unique.
Something about the font just does
not Trek.
Doesn't.
It doesn't fit in with the rest.
Not even close.
Wait, who's the director on this one?
First time he had directed a Trek, he had never even watched Trek before. Stuart Baird, B-A-I-R-D. Baird. He had never even watched The Next Generation.
And that surprises me not.
A sign of things to come.
It really does. I mean, okay, we're going to bring in someone fresh, somebody who's not part of the franchise to give it a rejuvenation. But when you bring in someone that's a complete blank slate, you really open the door for them to shite on your franchise.
Now, some people are into that kind of thing, and we don't kink shame, but there's a good way to do it and a bad way. And
That
it just...
there was nobody there to keep him in check.
And I think that's the problem, is you have a lot of those old checks and balances with your Rick Bermans, with Herman, with the old guard. Well, not even the old guard, the mid guard that used to be there.
I mean, Berman was the producer on this, but Frakes had produced or had directed the previous 2 movies, and I saw several discussions about, he could have gone to Frakes, just, hey, it just like bounce things off of him. Didn't approach him whatsoever.
Nope.
About, hey, what do you think? Which, Frakes, hands off. It's like, yep, this is your movie.
And so after the wonderful text introduction that lets us know that it is supposed to be a Star Trek movie, we then actually get not a terrible view and galactic zoom in past one planetary body into the next one. And
then a gorgeous zoom in. I will give the effects team props on this one. I mean, no complaints about the effects.
Yeah, and also consistency with, yes, we are going into the Senate Palladium, the actual city and governmental center of the Romulan Empire. So already jumping right in to, oh, this is going to be a Romulans as a bad guy story, isn't it? Which, hey.
We haven't had too much Romulan-centric stuff in the movies.
No, we
haven't.
So
it is a nice beginning to, okay, this is clearly going to be something different. Now, something going on in the Senate chamber. I don't remember exactly what they were talking about.
So the discussion was, someone had put forth that there should be a change in the power structure, and they should start including more of an opposing body or a slightly different body politic headed by this person named Shinzon.
Mm-hmm.
At which point, the Praetor and the majority of the Senate are against it. We don't find out why. It's just typical representative republic type of political back and forth. And this one senator here to the right that we're seeing is playing with this device on the table in front of her. And when the notion and when the proposition...
I'm sorry. Jared, I'm sorry. Karis, that made me giggle. It looks like she has one of those easy buttons on the table. It kind of is.
Yeah. We are going to get into that because, yes, the device there in front of her is the galactic equivalent of the easy button that she sets up and then walks off.
I've got an appointment.
Yeah, I got other things to do. We're done talking about the important thing that you guys shut down, so not a problem. I'm just going to walk off.
Pay no attention to the easy button I left behind.
Yeah. Nothing to see here. And then it opens. And that's when it starts to catch people's attention. And then this happens, and it's quite the wonderful light show. And throughout this entire display, no one says a goddamn thing.
It's because they all think they're high on the same hallucinogenic drug.
The security for the Romulan Senate chamber is disgusting. Seriously.
Because you have this happen, you have it give off this wonderful light show, and then it all fizzles out, and it seems like nothing happened. It seemed like it was a dud. But the Romulans, being the paranoid people that they are, the Praetor recognizes something just happened. We don't know what it is. Now let's get security involved.
But a little too late.
Just a little bit. Scythe TK. But pretty colors.
And again, Karis, but her button has teeth. No, we already discussed.
Save that one for later. Saving it for later.
No kink shaming. No kink shaming.
Yeah.
So we end this scene with the Praetor turning into dust, falling to the ground, and just poofing into nothingness.
Now, remember that this entering scene, because there's going to be something brought up about it later that I have a question for everyone about.
I'm excited.
But are you as excited as this face appears to be?
Duty. A ship's captain's life is filled with a solemn duty. I have commanded men in battle. I have negotiated peace treaties between implacable enemies. I have represented the Federation in first contact with 27 alien species, but none of them compares with a solemn duty today as best man.
If he's the best man, who presided over the ceremony?
That is a good question, but,
Guinan, probably.
could be. Ask yourself, though, Jared, if you were in those positions, what would you rather have Picard as? The best man or the officiant?
The officiant.
Think so?
Yeah. Because here's the thing, is he has the power, he has the authority, he has been an integral part of not just career but personal life for the last 15 years of both sides of the marriage,
True.
Both sides of the wedding. So he has the authority and power to be the official for this part of the wedding ceremony. So why not have him be the officiant there, but then the best man at part 2?
Could. And you never know, might have.
And, Scythe, you don't have to worry, even though, yes, you are not seeing things. That is Wesley to the far left. Wesley Crusher does make an appearance back on screen, but thankfully he had no fucking lines.
Later on in the movie, somebody yelled, "Fire at Will," and my first thought was, what did Will Wheaton do to you? So we go through...
Hang on.
Right.
One quick second on according to that. Craven Mordick. Something I've always wondered. If a cruise ship had a wedding chapel, who performs the weddings? This is actually a very simple thing. Being married aboard a cruise ship is actually a very simple and easy thing to do. And you have two options. You either bring your own priest or official to perform the service, or it is performed by the captain of the cruise ship. Yep. So the whole thing about Picard in TNG and here, where he says that it's an old naval tradition that captains are able to officiate weddings, rooted in truth, rooted in fact.
I would just like to let everybody know that I am a minister in the Church of Life ministry. So if anybody would like me to perform a service, fully capable. Can't guarantee it'll be absolutely legal, but I'll do it for a minor fee.
Now, and if
you accept Coors Light?
Hang on. So you have the Church of Life on that side. I, at one point, went through the process and became ordained, like a friend of mine, through the Church of Body Modification. It is a thing.
That I had never heard of.
Yeah, I didn't at first until he told me he did it. I was like, you know what? That's fucking hilarious. I'm going to do it too.
All right, so continuing on, we have the beautiful wedding ceremony. Picard does have some beautiful words about both Riker and Troy.
And also Data, because, well, I got to train my new first officer. And Data pipes in Data fashion.
Oh, what is the comment about?
Going on away missions.
Yeah, so he's a tyrannical marionette who will never, ever allow me to go on away missions. And then Data chimes in, that is regulation, sir. Starfleet Code, Section 12. Shut up, Data. Yes, sir.
I waited 15 years to say that.
Yeah. You have these little nudges, these little, shall we say, archaic touches of humanity that, you know what, in this scene, they're passable. I won't go so far to say that they work, but tolerable. You can give it the grace for the beginning of the movie with following insurrection with yet another life-changing thing, and also the news that we're getting that Riker is finally taking the captain's chair for himself.
Oh, yes. Yeah, so Will is moving over to...
The USS Titan.
Yep. Which, it's about damn time. Like I have said over the past couple of movies, I would have loved to have seen a series with Riker as the captain. That would have been amazing.
That would have been an appropriate actual progression. Even had they done it right after Generations, or had it take place between Generations and First Contact, and have the two of them team up for First Contact, because let's remember, in the original series, Kirk was the captain, Spock was the first officer, but throughout the beginning few movies of the TOS era crew, what was the actual dynamic? Kirk was the admiral, Spock was the captain of the Enterprise.
Spock was the captain. Spock had already moved on.
Yeah.
Or moved up, I should say. So we continue on through the ceremony. Very beautiful toasts. And then a cute little interaction with Guinan. And Geordi asked, do you ever think you'll get married again? And Guinan's response, no. 23 is my limit.
The face he makes after that.
And then, Worf, are you all right?
Now, before that, the face that LaForge gives Guinan when she says how many times she's been married, did he fucking forget that he ran into her in San Francisco in Earth's past back when Mark Twain was still fucking alive?
She's been around for a hot minute.
A few centuries, easy. So, 23, not really a bad number when you consider someone has been alive for no less than close to 500 years at this point.
Yeah, and how many of those were just people she outlived?
Yeah. It doesn't say how they ended, and it very well could be a mix of outliving the spouse or it not working and being, you know what, screw you, I'm gone.
I've put up with your shit for 70 years. That's about enough. So then the next line is Guinan looking over and seeing Worf and asking, Worf, are you all right? Romulan ale should be illegal.
It
is.
And then we get a lovely gift from Commander Data to the couple as he sings.
Which, you know what? I've heard
Irving
worse.
Berlin.
I've heard worse. And the song choice, with how he phrased it, really wasn't a bad one either, because, as he pointed out, Riker is a lover of ancient musical stylings.
Archaic.
Yeah. Never saw the sun shining so bright. Never saw things going so right. Notice the days hurrying by.
I'm not doing it.
Damn it! I tried. I tried.
Don't worry, Karis, I got the other part for it.
When you're in love, my how they fly. Blue skies.
Now, see,
Nothing but blue skies.
Here is the reason why I didn't want to partake in this one, because it would have been okay initially, but then the beginning scene of Star Trek Picard happened. And for those who actually can pick up and actually catch the details with your ear, the song that Data is singing right here, same song that they began the series with.
I missed that. But then again, when I watched Picard, I had not... It's been a while since I watched the first episode of Picard or this.
Yeah, there are a bunch of details that you can tell influenced Picard that just somehow increased my anger about it.
So that is the last scene from the wedding, and then we immediately jump to the Enterprise E.
A glory shot, should you say?
It is. That was a beautiful, beautiful shot. Again, I'm really happy with the graphics on this one. And we jump into a very, very odd conversation with Deanna Troi saying, "It's tradition, Worf. You of all people should appreciate that."
No.
The response is, "I will not do it."
And Riker is laughing because what we come to find out is there's a particular tradition on Beta Z when it comes to official ceremonies, specifically weddings.
"Captain, I do not think it's appropriate for a Starfleet officer to appear naked." Oh, yeah, and oh, come on. A big, handsome, strapping fellow like you? What can you be afraid of? And then immediately jump into some other things that are going on. Picking up unusual electromagnetic signatures on the Coloran system, specifically of the positronic type of signatures.
In which we find out it is coming from Colaris 3, which is very close to the Romulan neutral zone, but not so close to dissuade further investigation because it's a positronic signature from a world that is industrial but pre-warp. Remember that, everyone. They are going to a world that they know is inhabited, has an advanced civilization that is in an industrial age, but is a pre-warp culture.
This should have already set off some warning signs, because shouldn't there be a quarantine around that planet, forbidding them from approaching it and requiring higher level authority to get there?
You would think so.
Yeah.
Who cares about rules?
Give me just 1 second. I have to let a dog out.
So, did you see my response to Rodent No Last Name's post?
I didn't. Wow.
Rodent No Last Name. I keep ordering Russian mail order brides, but they keep shipping dead in the box. To which I responded, does the website have necro in the address? I mean, it's a valid question.
You might want to check to make sure that you're ordering from the appropriate source there, Rodent.
All right, I'm back. So clearly this is piqued Data's interest because any positronic signature would mean some form of artificial life, of which at this point only he
Not-
and Lore.
Well, I was going to say, not just artificial life, but more specifically, a Noonian-type android.
So we get some more glory shots of the Enterprise approaching. And that one other thing that kind of caught me here is Picard makes a comment of that his delivery to his new ship is going to be delayed. Would they have honestly taken an entire vessel to deliver one person?
Typically speaking, no. However, if deployments, schedules, and scheduled port calls overlap and such that they are meeting at a planet like Beta Z, where the Enterprise was headed anyways, then
It could, but it seems like this coincidence happens a lot in Star Trek.
it's almost like the writers have gotten lazy.
Well, and to be honest, I mean, they're going to Beta Z. Why not send the ship that your new captain's going to be to the planet where he's getting married for a second time? To wait for him.
It seems like it happens a lot. That's the only reason I brought it up. So, once we get to the planet, they scan the surface and they identify that there are 2, 4, 6 separate signatures of positronic signatures on the surface.
And appears to be in a rather rough, almost desert-like terrain, to which Picard decides to embrace the shall we say, ramifications of the visit inside the Briar Patch, the movie before.
Mm-hmm.
Because one could say that his decision here is, while not uncalled for, a bit of a brash choice for Picard himself.
So Picard decides that he will once again, as always, lead the away team down to the surface. Geordi advises against using the transporter, so they're going to have to shuttlecraft down. And Picard indicates that he has been itching to try out the Argo. So lays the groundwork for something new that we have not seen before. Riker tries to rebut, but Picard says, no, Captain's prerogative, and your wife would never forgive me if anything happened to you.
Which,
and then,
as he's on his way out, correctly refers to Riker as, you have the bridge, Mr. Troy. Because a lot of people forget that Beta Z is actually not true equality between the genders per se. They're
matriarchal.
They have a matriarchal slant to them because in our culture, on our planet, it is the woman, it is the female who takes the family name of the male. On Beta Z, it's the other way around.
So, another glory shot of the Argo departing the shuttle bay. It's on the side of it, isn't it?
No, it's inside.
The Argo is on the side of the shuttlecraft as well, though.
No, it's inside the shuttlecraft.
No,
the name is on the side of the shuttlecraft.
The Argo is the system that is both craft, the shuttle carrier and the dune buggy.
Yeah, it's a shuttlecraft. I don't count it as an Argo. Argo is the off-road vehicle. I don't care about your continuity. I'm a Star Trek fan. How can I care about continuity?
So again, we're on a pre-warp civilization. We have just landed on it with a warp craft, but we are now driving around on it in a dune buggy. Slightly acceptable.
We saw how spread out they were. Did they really have to land that far away from the first one they were going to?
Which
Well, if
also
you're
brings up my next comment is that as they land, Data makes some comments about the ship, but then they get here and Data's where is it? Trying to find where it should be like any. It's within a few meters, and Picard says spread out. Why the hell are the other two walking around without tricorders out, and Data's the only one actually looking for it?
Well, because the tricorder is being interfered with by the EM field of the planet.
So wouldn't you want more sensors picking up on the information to triangulate and filter out the noise?
Why would you want to triangulate? Dead
But
reckoning
we
is
are
the
within a
only
few
way.
meters. Yeah.
Dead
The
reckoning
radiant
is the only
electromagnetic
way.
field is interfering with my tricorder, but we are within a few meters of the signal. That means he's still getting the signal.
And we forgot to discuss Picard's tryout for Top Gear, by the way.
Oh, yes. The whole thing about driving at excessive velocities.
Unsafe velocities.
Yeah.
Data makes the comment of, I will always be puzzled by humans' predilection to piloting vehicles at unsafe velocities. And they just ignore it and keep driving.
Like I said,
So they
Top Gear tryout.
Yeah, true. A nice vehicle to be trying it out in, though. So we get... Suddenly, Worf gets grabbed by an arm in nice, Halloween style. It's got to be a horror movie a little bit, until we discover it is just an arm.
Which I have to give you credit on the timing of this screenshot, because that hand that literally came out of the ground to grab at Worf is starting to give the impression towards its own movie that I have been. Can we just fuck off with this idiotic, pointless action for the sake of action scene?
No, we can't. And besides, this is the planet where Thing came from in the Addams Family.
No, I think there's another tie-in here that we're going to get to in a moment. I'm hoping you got the screenshot of this one of, they end up getting more of the puzzle pieces, and yes, gotta save the head for last, because what is better than a character that can give Data the treatment that Data often gave everyone else?
Stating things that are obvious?
And acting
Why?
like the mind of a child in many instances.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks for that screenshot. I just noticed the green screen effect on the air.
Yeah,
The way the mess.
which one's Data? Which one's the prop and the replacement?
Well, no, I think what actually happened is they used Brent Spiner for both, obviously, and masked him out. But I think they kept the green screen a little too close to the head, on the hair on B4 there.
Oh, and look at the back of Data's shoulders. It's a little shinier than it should be based on what's behind him.
Oh yeah, that's true.
So about this time, we are suddenly intruded upon by some kind of an enemy force. And I must say that whoever these people are, unbeknownst to us, clearly trained with stormtroopers. Because they can't hit shit.
Furball, how difficult is it to shoot from a non-stabilized platform attached to a moving vehicle over rough terrain?
I get it. Yes, that is difficult. But when you've got that many vehicles with that many people using fully automatic weapons, and they're shooting back from the same unstable platform, not a single fucking shot was made.
Now, are we sure those are fully automatic, or were they fully semi-automatic?
All I know is they go pew pew.
Pew 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 pew. And then during this, I didn't get a screenshot of it, but the head starts asking questions. Why do you have a shiny head? And Data responds, "This is not appropriate time for conversation."
Why?
Because the captain has to concentrate on piloting the vehicle.
Why?
Because.
Why?
Data! Sorry, sir. And he puts the head away in the console. Now we get to see this wonderful little handheld. Apparently the Argo is also a drone. And Data starts piloting it. Putting it in front of him. And now I will give them credit for one thing. If this would have been made today, this shot would have been a slow-mo pause. I mean, they did a little bit of slow-mo, but they didn't totally JJ it.
Oh, yeah.
But they wanted to. And please tell me that one of the next screenshots is the face of the pursuers. Okay, you missed it, but
yeah.
If you go back and look, do you know who they look very familiar to? Kelvin Timeline, Scotty's little companion from the outpost on Delta Vega that then follows him to the Enterprise.
Yeah, just a larger version and sharper teeth.
Mm-hmm.
Now we find ourselves back on the Enterprise with the parts of something. The doctor making a comment about he has your eye, or your eyes are different.
I like your eyes better. Our eyes are
all
exactly
things
the same.
Yeah. All things considered, Data, I think you have nicer eyes. Our eyes are identical, Doctor. Data being Data.
Almost,
so we start discussing. Go ahead.
Data being Data, almost as if it's a poor feedback, as if to remind everyone, yes, Data is an unfeeling, uber-analytical android that still has the emotions chips permanently fused to his circuitry. Oh, no, we didn't watch either of the last two movies. Who are we kidding?
So now we've got the clearly childlike wonder look of this head, and then when they start discussing what it is, its internal mechanics are the same as Data's, but not as much positronic development. The neural pathways aren't nearly as sophisticated. It looks like a prototype. And Data asks him, "Do you have a name?"
B4.
B4. Dr. Song's penchant for whimsical names seems to have no end.
You know, I don't
Why
know.
does the man...
I don't know how much whimsy goes into naming lore.
Or
no.
Data.
But then B4 has a good question of, why does the tall man have a furry face?
There must have been something with the programming that was changed to give it such a childlike mentality while still having a full grasp of language.
Yeah. Next, we jump to Picard's chambers, where he gets a phone call from
Admiral
Janeway.
Where we get the announcement that there has been a political shakeup in the Romulan Empire, and they have a new praetor who wants to talk peace.
So, any comments about Admiral Janeway?
Well, she did survive many years in the Delta Quadrant, so...
But
she did.
Yeah.
But wasn't the Voyager her first command?
Mm-hmm. And she's not just Admiral Janeway. She's Rear Admiral Upper Half Janeway. She is 3 stripes above Picard.
2. 2.
Okay.
Yeah, it's 2.
Yeah. But at one time, they were captains together on the same progression line. And in a course of 2 years, she got promoted twice. Well, he got promoted nunced.
Well, remember, Kirk gave him the advice: don't let them take you out of the chair.
Don't let them transfer you. Don't let them promote you. Don't let them do anything that takes you off that bridge. One of the few good lines out of Generations.
True. So Janeway says that with the Romulans, there is a new Praetor. And the new Praetor is not ramen. He's not a noodle.
Wow.
He's Reman. So he is from the planet Remus, not Romulus. And that they want to open up a dialogue, and Picard has been picked to go.
Because, shocker of all shockers, the Enterprise is the closest ship.
That's
Not
just shitty luck.
Well, and here's the thing. It would be one thing to say that of the captains we have in proximity to the neutral zone, you are the most experienced with sensitive diplomatic measures and situations of this type, so we're going with our best asset in the area. No, it wasn't that. It was, you are literally the closest, you're going.
Alright, hold on, guys.
So yeah, Rodent No Last Name, that whole plot hole about the Enterprise conveniently always being the closest one and only one able to respond in time, not unfounded. And especially with Janeway's attempt to curry a little bit of more favor and playfully jibe with Picard and mentioning the Sona, the Borg.
You get all the easy assignments.
Yeah, just no.
Can you hear my dogs playing in the background?
I also read the chat, so.
Oh. So Picard then enters the bridge, instructs a helmsman to lay in a course for Romulus, warp 8, with a little bit of question of Romulus?
Yeah.
I'm afraid the Opal Sea will have to wait. Number 1, engage. So he's not going to get his wedding. Worf is going to have to keep his clothes on for now. And now this was a distinctly different warp departure than any of the other movies, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm. Because what do we see here that we have not seen before?
There's a trail. All you normally get is a light burst as it punches forward and disappears. But this has got some kind of an exhaust trail.
And what happens in 7 years? 7 years actual time, our time. So this movie was released in 2002.
Okay.
What do we get in 2009? The JJ verse.
And does he have the same trails?
Yes, he does.
See, it never stood out to me with the JJ verse movies because those were just so different and on a shelf by themselves. This is supposed to be canon.
Mm-hmm.
And it's different. I don't like it.
So here we start to get our actual necessary exposition in the form of a typical conference room brief about the known dynamics of not just the Romulan Empire and the Romulan Senate, but also Romulan culture to begin with, and the dynamic between the Romulan populace and the Reman populace. Because the world of Remus. So yes, we are going straight from Rome's mythology for the naming and pairing of these planets. That Remus is a very special type of planet that, by all accounts, should not be able to support humanoid life as we know it, because, much like our moon, Remus is tidally locked to the Romulan parent star.
As Data explains it, as you can see, one side of Remus always faces the sun. Due to the extreme temperatures on that half of their world, the Remans live on the dark side of the planet. Almost nothing is known about the Reman homeworld, although intelligence scans have proven the existence of dilithium mining and heavy weapons construction. The Remans themselves are considered an undesirable caste in the hierarchy of the Empire.
And yet, during the Dominion War, the Reman warriors were of such brutal efficiency that they were often used as shock troops. And Shinzon himself, all that is known about him are the dozen battles that he took place, that he had a part in during the Dominion War, in which he was noted for his ruthless efficiency.
So they start discussing that, and specifically that the Remans were cannon fodder. And how did a Reman become Praetor?
Must have had support from the Imperial Navy, because every time there is a drastic, quick change of leadership in the Romulan Star Empire, it is always supported by the actual fleet, by the military arm of the Romulan government. Sounds an awful lot like later in life Rome.
So they continue discussing. They talk about Shinzon himself, that there's little intelligence on it, but they know that he's fought in 12 major engagements in the war, all successful. Beyond that, though, they know hardly anything. And that is where they're going into. They're walking into the capital of the Romulan Empire to a new leader that they have no intelligence about.
Blind
and
as a
Picard's
bat.
going down there to talk to them.
Yep, and going in quite effectively, blind as a bat. But not out of control just yet.
Yet. Then we jump back over to B4, Geordi and Data.
Where Data decides to play a little bit of the mad scientist role, while recognizing that the primary hardware is the same between he and B4. He admittedly knows that B4's positronic matrix is not nearly as developed. But we're going to try a complete memory copy and transfer as well, in the hopes that B4's programming can be updated to a standard closer to Data himself. Because throughout this, in this interaction, we learn from Data that he actually he's not missing major details here about the state that B4 is in, even going so far as to recognize that B4 does not match with Data's programming. As Data even said, I strive to exceed and grow beyond my programming. B4 does not. But with all of this, there is a very interesting philosophical question that comes up, where Geordi even challenges Data on this. By transferring all of his memories into B4, if the process does take hold and does work, does that mean Data stops being his own unique individual?
And he asks him, do you feel comfortable with that? And Data's response is, I feel nothing, Geordi. It is my belief that my memory engrams will be able to function as a more... with my memory engrams, he will be able to function more as a more complete individual.
Now, this is one of the times that I got a little bit of miffed yet again, because Data, did you turn off your emotions chips for 95% of this goddamn fucking movie? I mean, because he apparently had it on for the wedding scene, and it looks as though he has it on for one or two scenes at the very end of the movie. But what about these massive threads to the plot in the fucking middle of it?
Where he's purely pragmatic with no emotions.
Yeah. Kinda missing something there. And yes, Rodent No Last Name, that is a very apt comparison. We'll load Windows onto a Commodore 64. It'll work.
So after the memories have been offloaded, start questioning. And Data asked before, do you know where you are? I'm in a room. With lights. And he starts asking him, can you remember our father?
No.
Do you know the name of the captain of this vessel?
No.
And Geordi points out that he's assimilating a lot of programs, that maybe they're too sophisticated, and it might take a little while for his matrix to adapt. And then Data points out, what's the purpose of this?
Well, is it Data who points it out, or was it Geordi?
No, Data. Geordi, what purpose does this serve? And that's when he points to that secondary port at the bottom of the neck.
Yes, to the redundant memory core.
So we're talking about a Mac here? Is that what we're talking about?
Apparently. Which just goes to show, I mean, if B4 is Mac, I mean, Data's got to be PC. PC Master Race.
Pretty bunch.
Yeah, I don't think that's how it works.
What?
Well,
you can make the operating systems work on the opposing hardware if you know what to do. One just works better.
Yeah, that's called Linux.
We are not getting lore into this conversation now.
That's what happens when you get sci-fi fans that actually know what they're talking about with computers, so, you know.
Well played, Jared. Well played. So it's a redundant port. Pay no mind to it. Nothing important, but nice to be added for later on discussions.
Maybe.
Next we've got outside shot where, and you can hear the captain's logs where he's a little frustrated. The Enterprise has arrived on Romulus, and we are waiting at the designated coordinates. All our hails have gone unanswered. We've been waiting for 17 hours.
Hurry up and wait.
And then, as they're just having, casual conversation, Worf, being a good tactical officer, says, raise our shield, sir. We're just sitting here. Picard says, no, not yet. And then, an extremely large ship that has never been seen before decloaks off the bow.
And it is... to which Worf again is like, raise your shields, and Picard, no, wait. Tactical
Captain.
analysis.
52 disruptor banks, 27 photon torpedo bays, primary and secondary shields. And do you remember Picard's response?
She's a predator.
Now we get that close-up that Jared was talking about earlier from the people...
No. These are the Remans.
Oh, yeah, sorry, yep. So this is not Shinzon, we discover. This is
Viceroy.
Yep. Yeah, we don't have a name. He's just referred to as Viceroy.
And for those who were watching this in the Discord server, if you were wondering why I said, ladies and gentlemen, Ron Perlman. Yes, it is Ron Perlman under all of that makeup and prosthetics.
Holy hell. And we get these glorious, terrifying shots, and then we go exterior, and you just see the sheer size of that thing.
The Scimitar is quite the impressive ship.
It's like comparing an aircraft carrier and one of the new Truman aircraft. Truman? No.
The
What
Ford,
am I thinking of?
The Ford class.
Ford class to an old original 688 class submarine.
Or, to be a little more direct, comparing a Ford class supercarrier to, let's go with an Essex or Yorktown class carrier from World War II.
Or would it be more of like one of the landing craft from Normandy?
No, because this one can actually defend itself to a point.
Yeah.
All right, so next we get our crew transporting over to the Scimitar to a very dark room. And a very sinister sounding Shinzon. And one of the first things he says is, Jean-Luc Picard, I've always imagined you taller.
And we have this very, very diplomatic, yet very militaristic play of words, and almost a dance to figure out who is on the opposite side of this discussion table, this peace table from you.
Yeah, there's nothing specifically sinister about this particular conversation, but you can feel it.
It really is frontier diplomacy being shown for what it is between two different civilizations that see themselves as evolved and above other types of things, and yet both have quite the penchant for secret organizations and spy networks and intelligence gathering. Amazing how that works, but throughout this, Shinzon is very clear to matter-of-factly point out that he knows the information, he knows the personnel records of every single Federation person in that party who beamed over. At which point he finally concedes that, okay, yes, I know you. It's about time that I illuminate the situation so you can know me. And he orders the lights up.
He orders the lights up, and then Picard asks him, it would be interesting to know what we're actually talking about. And even though this is very diplomatic and altruistic, you can taste the venom in it. And his response is, unity, Captain, tearing down the walls between us to recognize that we are one. I'm talking of the thing that makes us all the same. Peace. We want peace.
Here is one of the times that I will actually give the writers of this movie a little bit of positive feedback and a little bit of credit. The duality of that statement that Shinzon just made, phenomenal. because even us watching this now, we can recognize he's not a Reman, he's not Romulan. The Romulans have been notorious of trying, and in a few instances, succeeding in having operatives inside the Federation. There had been talks at another point of Romulans trying to use clones as their operatives at other points previous in the Next Generation. Did they try to do that with Picard at one point? We get that question here. So the duality really does become that center point of the narrative side of this going forward, which, well done enough.
Thinking about just, when they were talking about this in the movie, you think back to all the times that he was either on Romulus for the two-parter Unity, or all the times he's been in contact with Romulans throughout the series. They've had ample time to...
Yeah, going as far back as the instance with Chirac, and then also with the ambassador who was actually a Romulan spy.
So with the lights being brought up, with the illuminating the situation, Shinzon brings up that when he was young, he was stricken with a very odd disease that made him very hypersensitive to sound. Even the slightest whisper would put him into agony, but they were able to diagnose it and treat it. And he asked Picard if he knows that. Picard recognizes, yes, he does, and that this is a very rare genetic disease that is apparently passed down by all male members of a family. And this is when it kind of dawns on us that there is some kind of genetic bond between Shinzon and Picard. Now, Shinzon at this point pulls out a knife, which later on we will discover that he has a penchant for knives. He really does. I mean, he's got them in every frickin' pocket. Gives a little bit of his blood and hands it over and says, "I think you'll be wanting this. Until tomorrow, Captain, we have much to discuss."
Now, here is a problem with that. One, there are so many other ways that you could submit a DNA sample for analysis that does not require the implication of malice, of removing a knife that was previously unseen, cutting yourself, and handing it over to transfer said blood sample. Also, especially seeing as how when he first came around the corner and took a few steps down, he said to Data, no need to scan in a manner of subterfuge. Go ahead and scan away. So if Data was already scanning them to begin with...
Bull has a point that the ship's name is the Scimitar. I mean...
I again, has a thing for bladed implements.
He does. He's got a kink, and it's knives.
I cannot see the word Broadway and not think of Spam-A-Lot now. I've listened to it so much on Pandora Radio.
Now, here's an interesting thing. With that knife there, and the knife that we end up seeing later in use that has the most uncomfortable looking hand grip and hilt situation to actually make it borderline unusable. Does anyone want to take a guess how old of a design of weapons these are?
Are you talking us or him? Or in lore?
No, the actual... So these were not designed for the movie. They were existing designs that were already out in the public, being sold in reality, and they were just brought into the movie because, hey, they look cool. Take a guess how old and how long each of those knives were on the market before this movie was released.
It looks Klingon to me.
Well, it was designed by the same person who designed the knife that was then used by the Klingons. Same designer, which Leon had already said in the chat, Gil Hibben.
They've been out for a while. I know that much. I knew.
So this movie was released in 2002. Both of these knives went to market under the United Cutlery brand, under the Kit Ray series, designed by Gil Hibben in 1991.
Yeah, been out for a minute.
A good 20 years.
Yeah.
Well, 2002, 91 to 2002, that's only 11.
No, go back even further. The initial drawings actually were done in the 80s, but really they were on the market for 11 years. At this point, those knives have been around 30 now.
So the next scene jumps, and we're back on the Enterprise, comparing the DNA, and Dr. Crusher says there's no doubt, right down to his aggressive strain of
Shallots. Or
Shallof's syndrome.
Shallof's syndrome.
He's a clone. He's probably used a hair follicle or a skin cell. Clearly not a hair follicle.
Well, Picard has hair.
Some.
Thinning.
Some.
Then we jump back to the Senate chamber where the Romulans say that we support you. I supported you when you assassinated the Senate. You told us the timing was perfect for an attack on the Federation.
Patience.
And now they're kind of pushing back against some of his plans. They wanted the takeover of the Senate so that they could attack the Federation, and clearly Shinzon has ulterior motives for other plans that don't necessarily involve what the Romulans want.
You don't say.
Jared Karras has a question about the knives. I would go with Ronco, not Cutco, but tomato.
Yeah, they're definitely Ronco. And I would. There is one thing that came to mind during this little exchange here. An answer to a question that I posed on a prior show, probably about 3-4 weeks ago now. Yes, I would like to know more. And for those people who don't understand that reference, yes, that... oh, you broke it!
Damn it. We're back.
The actress we have here is none other than Dina Meyer, who played Dizzy Flores in the 1997 movie Starship Troopers.
Oh, damn. Didn't even pick that up. Nice.
Well, from the angle when I was watching this earlier today, for a second the way the makeup and everything structures, it almost kind of looks like a young Helena Bonham Carter. I'm like, no, she wouldn't have done this. I would have known she had done this, So I went and looked it up, and then I looked up her filmography. I'm like, oh, that's why I know her.
Mm-hmm. God's auditor. If she'd have taken off the shirt, I would have recognized her. Yeah, some of us are able to pay attention to other details that are more fitting.
Sorry, I got distracted for a second.
Oh, kind of like I got distracted earlier today. Anyways, so what we have here is a really great glimpse into both characters. And sadly, I wish more of the nuance of Dina Meyer's character here actually came to the forefront in the movie, because very interesting backstory there with her. But with Shinzon, go back one. The reason why she is actually standing so close as people are otherwise leaving is because Shinsan said, no, I'm doing things my own pace. Everyone leave. Except you. And her being a Romulan, her being a self-aware, attractive Romulan, decides to ply a little bit of feminine wiles to ingratiate herself to the new Praetor, who recognizes the play and dumps a whole load of shit all over it because he lets loose with his own bigotry against the Romulans themselves, saying that what would a Romulan like you know of such things? You disgust me. But you want to get on my good side? Keep an eye on him. Keep an eye on your mentor, and if he shows any sign of betrayal, you let me know, and that will get you on the track to being in my good graces.
And then as she walks away, he has one last warning, shall we say?
That is a very apt way to describe it, yes.
If you ever touch me again, I'll kill you. There is clearly no behind-the-scenes intimacy involved in this particular relationship.
Not for lack of trying, apparently.
I mean, she would be a perfect Romulan spy. Just saying. Just saying. But then the next thing we see is as she's leaving, Shinzon has something wrong.
It almost
His
looks
viceroy,
like an ulcer.
She comes back and witnesses that there's an issue here and sees the Viceroy. I didn't quite get this with the end of the plot of what he's doing here. Is he providing moral support?
We don't really get a clue at this point. But there is something, and the fact that just prior to this, they show that she is still watching. She sees that he doubled over. There's something going on here. There's a piece to the puzzle that is missing.
Yes.
Which, again, you know what? I will give the writers a little bit of credit for not just immediately giving the answers and actually dropping these little things along the path that, okay, it kind of pisses me off more because it shows that you're actually not complete shit writers, so what the fuck is going on with everything else? Anyways, continuing on, we get, you know what? Not, I'm willing to say, not the same cat as in Generations, but at least they kept the fur length and color pattern the same.
I mean, there's some continuity a little bit?
Little bit, yeah. But
we get the characteristic data extreme speed typing.
But let's not gloss over what really happened here, because remember the memory port from before. We got B4 sitting there just petting Spot, much like a child would, enjoying some time with the fluffy little cute little creature, and then all of a sudden stops. Spot jumps down, and B4 makes his way over to the nearest computer terminal and just starts typing away. Just starts going through things at such a pace and in such an interface. The visual department should be shot for this one because we get one of the most generic looking fucking screens ever as B4 is looking for whatever he is.
He's entering the Matrix.
Lazy. fucking lazy from the art department on this one.
There's a redhead. There's a brunette. But no dialogue on that one. And then we jump to the Romulan Senate chamber where Shinzon and Picard are now talking. And Shinzon comes forward and says that they gained possession of your DNA, that somehow they created me, and the intent was for me to replace you and to put a Romulan agent at the heart of Starfleet. And Picard asks, well, what happened? What happens frequently here on Romulus? A new government came to power.
And with that, the old plans were scrapped. But rather than kill me, they sent me off to the dilithium mines of Remus to die.
So now we get the actual first scenes ever of Remus. And a very violent place in the mines. And that is where he befriended his now viceroy, who took care of him and helped him survive.
And learn how to survive in the conditions that ended up shaping and molding the prior no-named replicant of Picard into what he now sees before him as Shinzon of Remus. Now, here's my question. If Shinzon knows this, if he knows this of his prior history, even though the government has changed hands and has been essentially been reset by yet another coup, a program like this would actually be going through the Tal Shiar. How the fuck would they lose track and not recognize that this new military figure of Shinzon was actually their clone that they never activated of Captain Jean-Luc Picard of the Federation?
What's the name of the
seems like
group above the Tal Shiar and the series that shall not be named?
Oh.
No, the Jat Vache, which was actually not above the Tal Shiar. They were an offshoot. They were a parallel branch, supposedly specifically going against advanced artificial intelligence, which completely shits all over the TNG shit, where the aforementioned Jirok was right next to Data and even mentioned, I know no less than a dozen Romulan cyberneticists who would love to change places with me right now. If Romulans were so fucking against cybernetics and artificial intelligence, why would they have cyberneticists to begin with?
Plot hole? Wait, he's not here today. Sorry.
So as they continue the conversation, Shinzon starts probing about their family, their history. Picard mentions that he was the first to leave the solar system, that it caused quite a stir in the family. And they both kind of admit that which is weird, they spent their youth looking up at the stars, dreaming about what was up there. The problem is that Shinzon had just admitted that he spent 10 years without seeing the sky inside the dilithium mines on Remus.
That's quite the situation to be in.
Yeah. But Picard continues that, he wants to believe Shinzon that if there's one ideal the Federation holds true, it's that all races can be united. And what a better example than it would be to have a Starfleet captain standing in the Romulan Senate chamber, and that he wants to take his hand in friendship, but that trust needs to be earned.
Who needs trust?
trust that. I mean, that's a face you can trust.
Yeah, we get to some really skeevy shit here soon that gives you reason to not.
So then we're back on the bridge. Worf announces that they've had unauthorized access to the computers. They don't know what the source is, what programs have been accessed, and so that's what they can't figure out. They're mostly basic stellar cartography, star charts, communication protocols, uplinks to colonies. None of it's even restricted. But they decide they need to learn what exactly, who did this.
And well, go back to that sign before, because this is crucial too, because this is a signal that Geordi had picked up on during all the scans of the scimitar that they were picking up, and it is a very specific segment of the EM spectrum, a signature of something that is theoretical, or at least the Federation thought was theoretical. Thalaron radiation. Which the Federation started looking into it, but abandoned it for one reason only that we actually get from Dr. Crusher. Thalaron radiation is very, very adept at being a biological weapon because it only targets organic material. Now, most people, when you think organic material, you think biological processes, flesh, bone, the actual physical essence of what is a living being. But guess what else classifies as an organic material? Now, remember back to the opening scene. I warned everyone, remember how the Senate died. What was unaffected? The clothing.
Mm-hmm.
So, are the entirety of the Romulan Senate wearing artificial fibers clothing with no organic component at all to them?
Living organic, I would say. It's the caveat that Dr. Crusher left out.
Oh, that's right, because we don't have writers. We have script polishers on this movie.
Now we jump back into the Senate, and the Viceroy immediately speaks up and says, "This was a mistake. We're wasting time. My time, and I shall spend it how I choose." And it's back and forth. Clearly there is something else here that Shinzon is aiming towards that the rest of anybody who's part of this coup is not. I don't see any hair on that head.
You don't see it in tapestry. You don't see it in tapestry
Where?
either. But also, I will give them this. They at least got the uniform right.
True. And find out that he's in the room with Beverly, and he asked, "Do you remember him?" And her response was, "He was a bit cocky, as I recall."
Oh, the arrogance and impatience of youth.
And Picard even admits he was a damn fool. Selfish, ambitious, very much in need of seasoning. Next, Data and Geordi are discussing the unauthorized access. They believe they've found a way to gain a tactical advantage from whoever had accessed the computer. And now we get the lovely romance scene. At least it begins that way.
Yes, and this is why you should not start a relationship with your therapist.
You will always be being psychoanalyzed.
Now, no, I don't want that to be taken the wrong way. I mean, therapists need love too, and they have a very stressful job because they have to deal with assholes like us. But you have both the wife and the ship's counselor telling the first officer, "You've done enough today. You need to get some sleep." And by sleep, I mean, I'll put you to sleep.
I gotta be back right for a sec. Gotta feed the dogs.
Yep. And with all this going on, we're going to keep going talking about the story because this goes to show the nature of the type of people that they are going against in this. While the Romulans have their own flavor of what is and is not acceptable tactics against an enemy, it seems like the Remans are playing their own game. They're playing by their own rules, and it really does.
Rules?
Well, it really does bring into question, where do you draw the line? Like, at what point, if you have the ability to do a thing, are you ethically required to not do a thing or to speak against it? Because what follows, we actually end up getting that glimpse, getting that show that not all trauma is physical. There are mental, there are psychological traumas that can be just as effective, if not more so, than an actual physical trauma. Because as Troy and Riker are enjoying a little bit of time to themselves as the couple that they are, that intimacy is broken and invaded with first the view of Shinzon's face. Because Shinzon apparently got a thing for Deanna Troi once he finally saw her, and even commented on how she was more beautiful than her profile had made her seem. So, major creep factor there. Major crossing the line there. And
Yeah,
It initiates a knowledge that we did not have before, that they have some kind of capability to invade the mind.
And because before we get this, the face changes from Shinzon's to the Viceroy's. And that's where we end up getting cut to scene. It's like, wait, how the hell is this happening? And we see that. We see that interaction. We see what is actually taking place, where the Viceroy is using a physical connection with Shinzon to then project himself into Deanna's mind. And as she fights back, that veil of Shinzon is pulled away, and you see the Reman face. And
still better looking than Reds.
Well, of course, it's allowed to be shown on screen. And Riker, recognizing there's something going on, that something ain't right, they ends up taking Troy to sickbay to get checked out. And this is, of course, after the connection is broken. She succeeded in breaking the connection there, and as Riker's taking care of his thing, not that far yet. Go back a little bit. As she's being taken care of on that end, after breaking the connection, Shinzon again doubles over in pain At which point the Viceroy, again, reaches down and puts his hand on his lower chest, upper stomach area. It's accelerating. So we get the sense that this Viceroy is sensitive in a multitude of ways, not just psychically, but also he's essentially his own biological scanner. And there is something going on in a medical sense with Shinzon. He takes that moment, he recollects himself, and what do we get? We get...
He walks into the Realmian Senate chamber, transporter room, and says transport, and B4 materializes.
And
begin the downlink. And that is when we see what that secondary port was for.
And hopefully the Enterprise had figured out before then.
Yeah. And then Shinzon orders tea. Hot. But he doesn't specify the kind.
Would he know about the kind, though?
I don't know. He would have to have known, if he'd done research on Earth, he would know the different types of teas. And you'd think that he would have a penchant for the same kind.
But would they have the programming to be able to adequately produce it aboard that ship? Possibly, but, You expect these people to pay attention to details like that?
Well,
And the other question would be, don't you think that they would have picked up somebody being transported off ship?
you expect them to pay attention to those types of things?
And then
You act
after
like
this
they
is
want
when-
security.
True. After this, Jared, is actually when we get in the sick bay where Crusher is examining Deanna, and Deanna's describing what happened, and that it was Shinzon's Viceroy that had the ability to reach out into her thoughts. And she says, at this point, I've become a liability and needs to be relieved of her duties.
Where did we hear that before?
Now,
It's almost like that happened in Generations by Data. And again, Picard said the same thing. No, I need you where you are.
So at this point, they're continuing the discussion that he needs her where she is. The Enterprise is far from Federation space, and Picard disappears.
All of a sudden, he's
Is
gone.
beamed out. And suddenly, Scimitar cloaks. And now we have the interaction where Picard is in custody, and Shinzon is with B4 in tow.
That's a
Picard
boss
says
needle,
this
though.
Yeah. You did all of this so that you could capture me. And Shinzon tells him, don't be so vain.
Yeah, because Picard
was-
is the one being vain.
Yeah. That the ultimate goal was actually that this was to transport B4 out to gain access to the Starfleet protocols, to get the exact locations of where the entire fleet was, even though the information was not classified but sensitive. They now know everything they need to know to have a full-on assault against the Federation.
Trying to remember how far along that got you.
Yeah, someone just tried to call me.
Reminding you to be ready for something?
No.
Or was it
She
the
just
child?
got the child. My wife just got home from the gym, so she's taking a shower, and then we're going to go out to dinner. So I've got about 20 minutes until I've got to go.
So let's hurry up.
I am uploading all the photos. If you guys want to continue once I'm done, I'll give you that as soon as the upload's done. But, so they have a little bit of an interaction here that find out what Shinzon's goals are. If your issue is with me, then deal with me. This has nothing to do with my ship, nothing to do with the Federation. And Shinzon's response is, but it does. We will no longer bow before anyone as slaves. Not the Romulans, not your mighty Federation. We are a race bred for war and conquest. So even though he's not Reman, he feels himself Reman, and he is going to exact revenge against everyone for what the Romulans have done to the Remans.
I just remembered the best line that we missed from the beginning of that, where Shinzon's, "Hello, Jean-Luc. Why am I here? Why have you done this?" "I was lonely."
Now the Enterprise is trying to find it, but they're saying that he's got a perfect cloak. There's no tachyon emissions. There's nothing. Absolutely nothing to try and find this ship. So this is weird that this type of technology just suddenly appears in the universe.
Mm-hmm.
In a ship that size.
And that's the thing is, the Romulan cloak had been seen as being the best out of them, because in the TNG era, they did have a hard time tracking the warbirds, the Daredeks, when they were cloaked, as long as they were going below a certain speed. Same thing with the Defiant, which was using a Romulan cloaking device. Below a certain warp factor, they were not able to be tracked because of how good the cloak was. But once you got above a certain energy output, it bled through. And this one is showing to not have that. And hoy, we got a super chat from NANA in the magical number of $6.66. "What do you expect? Picard has been kicking ass all over space for 30 years. Hail Sagan."
So, back on the Scimitar, Picard apparently looks like he's getting his ass kicked. BE4 comes in, says that Shinzon has demanded the prisoner to be brought to him. Data gives a nice... Sorry. B4 gives a nice Vulcan neck pinch.
No,
and we find out that it is not B4, it is Data.
To which Data says, "My mission was a success, sir. I have located the source of the radiation. This entire ship is essentially a Thalaron generator. Its power relays lead to an activation matrix on the bridge." So when Bullionator and yourself, Furball, had called it a gun in space, yeah, yeah. The entire ship was designed for this Thalaron emitter and reactor. Everything else was just, we kind of need it for the crew. That's about it. Not that we want it.
You mean it's almost like a ballistic missile submarine having torpedoes?
Pretty much, yeah. I guess I can. Where is that? That is there.
Is the child pestering all now?
It is apparently pestering in such a way that it requires that. Okay.
Hey, Jay, could you check the folder I just...
I've got it pulled up right now.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I'm only halfway through the screenshots.
Which one are you on right now?
Find a number.
10:06:34.
Yep, I got it.
All right. So, Picard then asks, "What about the download?" Shinzon believes he has our communication protocols. They will give him inaccurate locations for all Starfleet vessels. So, what we suspected is that they actually did do their job right. They figured out what was going on and managed to interrupt it and put a wrench into the works.
Which is good. I mean, it's not often that you see something like this circumvented that way, and I think they played it off well. But then at this point, Data pulls out something weird from an extremely weird port in his arm.
It's always the forearm. And think about it. And whenever Data needs to store something, be it in the episode Cupid or in Generations, it's always right there on the underside of the forearm. It's almost like it's a really easy place to get to that you don't have to remove much in the way of clothing.
You mean it's like a glove box?
Data says that this is it's a one-time
prototype for the emergency transport unit.
Picard gives it back and says that we'll find our way off together. The Viceroy comes onto the bridge and says it's time for the procedure, which at this point we don't exactly know what it is. And now we get a Data trying to be humorous.
Again, in a moment like this, you have the emotion chip on, apparently, but not before. Move, puny human animal.
You have to admit, though, that would be something B4 would say.
And then once again, we discover that everybody that has been trained in this movie, other than Starfleet officers,
are inept as fuck.
Yeah, they were trained by frickin' stormtroopers.
Well, they were on the Death Star before. I mean, come on.
Pew! Pew pew! Pew pew! They get into the shuttle bay, they seal off the hangar, and they find this sweet little craft.
It looked better in Sequest.
Nice. And then Picard asks, what is this? And he's pointing at one of the buttons on the screen. And what was it? It was the...
port thruster.
Port thrusters. Would you like me to fly, sir?
Take off. Can't get out. They cannot override the doors. So Picard decides that the next best thing is to literally fly through the ship to get out.
Well, he's just playing Mario Kart. What are you talking about?
This really reminds me of scenes from episode 1. This is Anakin. This is Anakin flying through the Trade Federation's mothership. Is it not?
Yeah, but this is a little bit more cornered. See, that was NASCAR. This is Formula One.
Okay. And we punch a nice hole through the skylight, which gives a little bit of a reflection of the cloaked ship. They get away, and right as Shinzon is trying to tractor their ship in, they immediately get transported in, which is my next question is, and we may have discussed this before, but does that not maintain its same forward velocity once it enters whatever place they transport it to?
You would think so,
Every time someone's
crashing on the shuttle bay?
Yeah, I mean, from the JJ verse, didn't Kirk get transported mid-fall and then slammed onto the deck?
Now, granted, that could have been not so much because of momentum, but because instead of standing him upright on the transporter pad, it kept him in the orientation that it did. So he was on his side when he rematerialized, which then, yeah, you're gonna fall. And then once we have them, they warp out immediately and begin their transit back to Federation space.
Yep. Oh yeah, that was Worf saying we've got them. They transport out. And once again, the Romulans are not happy with Shinzon. Because he is playing his own game when they were supposed to be in this together.
This has gone far enough. I thought we had discussed patience, Commander. And that was the whole thing before about he is doing things at his own pace. No. You're doing things that you want to do, not what you had promised to do. And after this interaction, and Shinzon ends the communication, Dinatra, Dina Meyer's character, says, "Commander, a moment? And this was actually intended to be a throwback to her character's backstory, where she was the daughter of a commander in Talulura's position. But when that happens, when the backer of the outgoing political powers are caught, it's not just them that are killed, it's also the family. So, hey, no retribution. And she was the daughter of an outgoing military commander in a similar situation who was intervened, protected, and then raised by the commander here. So she pulls on that a bit, saying, "Are you truly prepared to have your hands drenched in blood? He's not planning to defeat Earth. He's planning its annihilation. And his sins will mark us and our children for generations."
This is the turning point for her where you can clearly see that she no longer supports what has begun.
And then we get a little more lovely exposition in, I think they were in the ready room at this point, where Crusher has finished her analysis of Shinzon's genome and knows exactly what's going on.
Yep. He was designed so that at a certain point his aging process could be accelerated to reach your age more quickly. He was going to need to skip 30 years of his life, but when temporally sequencing isn't activated, his cellular structure starts to break down. He's dying.
Dying? Can anything be done for him?
Nothing except a complete infusion from the only donor with compatible DNA. You.
Ah. Now
So
there's
now,
the unity.
Yeah, now we see what's on the other side of this. Now we're not just trying to go for the annihilation of Earth and the rest of the universe that goes at in retribution for what they've done, but this is him just trying to live, which, ironically, maybe the Remans and the Romulans would have been behind if he would have told them.
No.
I mean, if he's going to be your strong leader...
No, I don't see that, because the Romulans abhor weakness like that. There's a reason why they would have those coups every now and then. They see a leader as weak or undeserving. They don't go outright cannibalistic, but they move, they plot, they position things, and then at the opportune moment, yeah, you're fucking out.
So Romulan or Sith?
Kinda, yeah. It's actually an apt comparison when it comes to that. But as we get through this, we get more of that information that you get the realization that, okay, so it's not just Earth he's after me. He's going to be coming after us. So knowing that, you would think that they would be on guard already immediately.
Yeah, maybe we should take some kind of countermeasures to prevent that from happening. Change our plans.
And then we get a rather intriguing yet only slightly heartbreaking moment where Data activates B4 just as cognitive and just his vocal capabilities, his communication abilities.
And B4 asks him, why?
Because you are dangerous.
Why?
You have been programmed to gather information that can be used against this ship.
I do not understand.
I know. Do you know anything about Shinzon's plans against the Federation?
No.
Do you have any knowledge of the tactical abilities of his ship?
No. Can I move now?
No.
What are you doing?
I must deactivate you.
For how long?
Indefinitely.
How long is that?
A long time, brother.
Right in the field. Right in the feels.
It hits enough. It has that weight. This scene was wasted in this movie.
It could have been a great scene if it wasn't surrounded by a terrible movie.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, this is the type of scene that we should have had, I don't know, maybe in Generations or First Contact.
Or even Insurrection, if there was a way to have that in there. But again, Insurrection was the movie to end this crew's run on. Not this one.
So now that we're back on the bridge, they call for a... wait, no. Sorry. It's called a cascading biogenic pulse. So that's what they're talking about for the Thaleron radiation and what it's going to do. It's a weapon of such scope that's only for one reason, and that's for destroying a planet, and that's why he's going for the Earth. And Picard picks up I know how he thinks, so they're trying to get ahead of him, and they start discussing the cloak that he has. If there's any way, and I will leave with one last quote from Riker when they're asked about that, and Will responds, "No way to penetrate her." Oh, sorry, cloak. There's no way to penetrate her cloak. Sorry about that. I left off a word.
Just had to, didn't you?
I did. I just had to penetrate her. I'm sorry.
No, you're not.
All right, guys. I'm going to take off. Had a great time. I will talk to y'all later.
All right.
Later, Furball.
All right, and
All right, and I'm sharing now.
Let's hide that one, and I will readjust that one. All right. Now that's set. So we get the continuation of the briefing, and come to find out that they haven't just been resting on their laurels. They have actually been properly preparing for what to do next. Crusher said we do have one advantage, though. He needs your blood to live. He might come after you first. There is no might. He has to come after Picard first.
Yep.
And which Riker asks, strength in numbers? At least that's what we hope. He must not be allowed to use that weapon. All other concerns are secondary. You understand me? Yes, sir. And then Picard calls it. All hands, battle stations. And we get the wonderful arming of the crew because, well, what do you do when you get ready for battle? Unless you're on an actual naval ship. You prepare to repel boarders.
Yep.
So we get the security crews getting armed out. We have everyone walking around with at least a Type 2 hand phaser, and LaForge initiate the force field.
That is a sexy force field over the warp core.
Yeah, kind of makes you wonder why they didn't have it in prior installations of this.
Well, I bet you they did. It's just that was such a tertiary system. It was one of the first to go, which made no sense.
Along with the eject sequence for the warp core.
Mm-hmm. Well, you see, the ejector sequence was secondary. So first you get the force field going, then the ejector is gone next with the next volley. Then you have the warp core breach. I mean, it's not like that's lazy writing or anything. Even though technically speaking, if we were to build a ship like this, I'm pretty sure all three of those systems would be primary systems.
Mm-hmm.
But what do I know? I mean, it's not like I worked on a nuclear submarine or anything.
So we get more shots of the preparation with the overview of Picard updating his personal log with what's about to happen. And then we end up with the wonderful view as the ship's going along at maximum warp.
More of Picard's log.
Yep.
Talking about how he...
Captain's personal log supplemental. We're heading towards Federation space at maximum warp. The crew has responded with the dedication I've come to expect of them. And like 1,000 other commanders on 1,000 other battlefields, I wait for the dawn. How close it is. And then we get the view of yet another instance of the Viceroy coming up from behind on Shinzon to give his little buddy a touch and see what's going on. And Shinzon asks, how long? And it's only a matter of hours, and again the Viceroy reiterates, we must begin the procedure now. And Shinzon, being a proper commander and wanting to keep situational awareness, asks, how long until we reach the rift? 7 minutes.
I wonder what the rift he's talking about.
I have a feeling we'll find out soon enough. In which we cut to another beautiful shot of the Enterprise going at warp speed in space towards something. And then
you have to admit, our department's got a good shot here.
It is. They had the one minor screw up with that computer screen with B4, but other than that, the art department, the graphics department, has done good on this movie. It's one of the few things that was actually done very well in this movie.
And this is where I got to in the movie before I came home today.
So we are in Astrometrics, which has an uplink with Starfleet Stellar Cartography. And Picard asks, what's our current position? How soon until we reach the fleet? And Data lets him know that at the current velocity, we will arrive at sector 1045 in approximately 40 minutes. And Picard, being Picard, starts quoting philosophy and literature. For now we see but through a glass darkly. Sir? He said he's a mirror. Of you, sir? Yes. And we get this back and forth on character analysis where Data, momentary, brief glimpse of true awareness, recognizes that although you share the same genetic structure, the events of your life have created a unique individual. And Data even goes on to say, the B4 is physically identical to me, although his neural pathways are not as advanced. But even if they were, he would not be me. To which Picard asks him, how can you be sure? I aspire, sir, to be better than I am. B4 does not. Nor does Shinzon. And this is where we get the flickering of the screen. And Data says, we're passing through the Basin Rift. The protection will return when we have cleared it. And Picard recognizes it's interfering with our uplink from Starfleet cartography. The rift affects all long-range communications. Picard gets it right away and immediately orders evasive maneuvers. And right as he does that, the battle is on. And Shinzon starts just not giving the Enterprise everything he's got, because remember, there is a vital piece on board that he needs. He cannot just outright destroy the Enterprise at this point, because he needs Picard to live. He needs Picard not just to live, but he needs Picard to survive this battle so he can then do the transfusion, which will save his own life. And because of this, Shinzon even orders, target weapon systems and shields. I don't want the Enterprise destroyed. And we get a quite the nod to Kirk versus Khan.
Khan, yeah.
Where Shinzon asks, "Can you learn to see in the dark, Captain?" And we get your typical battles back and forth. Definitely one way. After that hit that we saw before, the warp core is taken offline. The Enterprise drops out of warp, and now it becomes a true sublight battle between that. The Enterprise is outmatched. Shinzon's cloak is perfect. The shields are dual layered on the scimitar, and they are massively outgunned. The Enterprise, that is. Yep. And to which, throughout all this, Shinzon, to himself on his bridge, is mocking Picard, even at one point saying, "You're too slow, old man."
Almost sounds like Khan and General Chang rolled into one character.
With that noted overconfidence that Picard alluded to earlier. So,
or firing everywhere.
Yeah, so Picard orders firing all phaser banks with 0 elevation in as wide of an arc as they can, in all directions, and then targeting on any shield hits. It's essentially the weapons version of active sonar.
Yep. That's just it. You know, when you see these battles in space movies, you can't help but think that it's like a submarine battle, because it truly is a 3-dimensional battle, and not everybody thinks in 3 dimensions when they're battling like this.
Yeah, most people think X and Y axis and forget the Z axis and changing elevation and changing that orientation. But here, they actually do it well. They actually show it as well, where you get movements all around. And at one point, you even get to where the fighting stops momentarily, and Shinzon reaches out to Picard. And yeah, we can... Such a basic display for an advanced ship.
Well, yeah, I was going to say, isn't this pretty much the Klingon knockoff of the Klingons' tactical display?
Wait, you mean that there are times that they were lazy in the production of this movie?
Oh, never. And it's almost like with every time they do a cloaked ship that can fire cloaked, it reveals itself a little bit.
Just a little bit, but never enough to be detected by the ship that they are firing at. But again, you got to keep it interesting for the viewer, for us, for the audience.
Oh, and I get that, but at the same time, there's somebody looking out the transparent aluminum portholes here, and has to see it.
Mm-hmm. But at the same time, once its cloak is active again and is
it can move away,
visually unobservable, your reaction times are slowed. in that aspect. And at this point, the Enterprise is taking a beating from this disruptor fire to take out the shields. And and at one point, we are actually... Shinzon reaches out and hails the Enterprise. And Picard, in typical fashion, on screen, and Shinzon says, "Will you join me in your ready room?" And then we get some of the last bit of exposition between these two, where Shinzon immediately starts out with, "You can't trace my holographic emitters, Captain, so don't bother. And you can't contact Starfleet. It's just the two of us now, Jean-Luc, as it should be." The arrogance. And we get this... We get the back and forth. We get where Shinzon, being so used to being the predator, so used to being the hunter, does not recognize how to momentarily step back and back down to then pivot and redirect. Whereas throughout all this, Picard's humanity and desire to have a resolution as opposed to an annihilation is taking place. Where throughout all of this, Picard is poking at the subconscious and sensibilities of Shinzon, saying, "Look at me, Shinzon. Your heart, your hands, your eyes are the same as mine. The blood pumping within you, the raw material is the same. We have the same potential." And Shinzon deflects that, trying to say that's the past.
Did Shinzon get stabbed in the heart by the Nausicaans as well?
Biologically speaking.
I mean, I understand metaphorically how he was going with that.
Again,
when I hear that line, my first thought is like, the Nausicaans were on Riemann?
Details. But Picard points out, it can be the future. Buried deep within you, beneath all the years of pain and anger, there is something that has never been nurtured. The potential to make yourself a better man. And that's what it is to be human. To make yourself more than you are. Oh yes, I know. There was a time you looked at the stars and dreamed of what might be. Childish dreams, Captain, lost in the dilithium mines of Remus. I am what you see now. And that's it. You have that adaptability, you have that creativity, you have that desire for progress that is embodied in Jean-Luc Picard. And you have a stuck, stoic, stubborn, pig-headed, overgrown child, arguably accomplished Shinzon, who has become target fixated. And just like anyone else out there who rides on two wheels, when you target fixate is when you have problems and you crash. And if you're not careful, that crash will end it. And that's what ends up happening here. The Enterprise is ultimately going to pull off, but in a way that people don't expect. In the meantime, once those communications are terminated for that last bit of true one-on-one, heart-to-heart between Picard and pseudo-Picard, we get the notification. 2 ships decloaking. And they're Romulan. And Riker on the Enterprise is, Just when I thought this couldn't get any worse. And Worf notes yet again, we are being hailed. And this is where we are reintroduced to Commander Dinatra. Of the Warbird Valdor, might we be of assistance? So at this point, you actually see that flip from people who used to be backing Shinzon now are against him. But will it help? Will the addition of 2 newer, more advanced Romulan warbirds help against the Scimitar? It'll be interesting because while they exchange pleasantries, they have a job to do first. And the fighting quickly resumes where the Scimitar now is going after all 3. And throughout all of this, the Scimitar picks off the Warbirds almost a little too easily, and you do see glimpses of the tactics at play. I mean, Shinzon recognizes the 2 Warbirds are actually probably having a better chance as he's continuing to knock down the defenses of the Enterprise. And there are 2 things that show out. The first Warbird is taken out and actually has a piece of it blown off. Go ahead. I think from looking at it, we have this shot. Yeah, this is the Warbird. Let's see if Blake actually got the money shot this time.
That one.
Right there. The shots from the Scimitar seem to be barely affected by the shields of the Warbird, and it takes off one of the wings holding the nacelle, taking that Warbird out of the fight, which, in what would be more fitting with a proper space battle, it continues on, and it actually ends up striking the Enterprise, but no damage because, hey, the shields are actually doing their thing for once.
You mean that physics actually plays out in space? What?
Sometimes they do. But there is a tactic that Shinzon pulls up that I do give him a little bit of credit for, even though it is a little Top Gun-esque. He pulls a feint. They drop the cloak on the port aft quadrant and go to pull a stop. He's going to pull the speed brakes and let the Warbird fly right by. And it seems like his crew doesn't recognize that this is a tactic that could be done or should be done. Because with the exposed part of the ship there, Dinatra orders to start firing on that exposed section. It's bait. He's reeling her in. And as we go on, what actually ends up happening is as she's firing away, as the Warbird's getting closer, Shinzon orders the stop. They come to a full stop. The Warbird goes right over top, and as it's going over the top, point blank range, right along the spine of the ship, Shinzon takes out the second Warbird. They're out of the fight. Now it's back to just the Enterprise and the Scimitar.
Yeah, tactically speaking, he was quite well prepared for not just the tactics of the Romulans, but the tactics of the Enterprise. He may not know everything, but he knows enough to be dangerous against them.
Yep. So now, with all this, Troy gets an idea. And this is where it is a good thing that Picard pushed her enough to keep her in position and keep her on duty, because Troy gets an idea and goes over to Worf. After saying, Captain, I think I may have a way to find them. And so what she ends up doing is standing at the tactical station with Worf, leading his hand along. She is using her light telepathic and empathic connection with this MFer right here, the Viceroy, to track him down. To actually...
Still better looking than Reds.
to find him. And
this is his
oh shit,
rear
face.
aft.
Yeah. And
He didn't get a shot of them. Oh, there it is.
no, it's here. So she's looking around. She's guiding along. And through all of this, it's a lull in the battle. The Ouija board firing slow. You know what? That really is the best way to describe it, because that's essentially what she's doing. She's actually using her Beta Z abilities in a way that is actually helpful and conducive to the situation. So
Good thing her mom wasn't there.
Oh,
Her mom would have been
jeez.
trying to get in Shinzon's pants.
No, well, maybe.
This is Loxana we're talking about.
Oh, the very
She's in the
true.
prime of her life.
But as we go on, after that tense time, which, let's be honest, it took a little bit longer. They definitely played up the drama of it a little more than now. But Troy's line, so vindicating for what she went through earlier. Remember me now? And that's when everything is let loose, and they end up knocking out a good segment of the cloak of the scimitar. And this actually just goes to show the difference between the effectiveness of a photon torpedo and a quantum torpedo from the Federation. And at this point, because of the state that everything's in, and with segments of the shields down, Shinzon orders a boarding party to the Enterprise to bring Picard to him. So he's still holding on at this point to that hope of, I'm going to survive this. As he said in a prior scene, the echo will outlive the voice. We'll see how that plays out.
Yeah, more firing by the Enterprise. A return volley by the Romulans, or the Remans.
And with this, we are still getting some wonderful visuals of the battle itself outside of the ships.
Oh yeah.
And after this, the dorsal shielding is down, and then we get the intruder alert indication where Riker and Worf go off to lead the security team to repel boarders.
Data hops over to take over because he's number 2.
Yep. And then, of course, why are there so many people around the bridge during a battle situation? Just so they have bodies to fill in the critical seats when an actual team member leaves.
You mean it pays to have people that can be trained to do multiple things? What?
Yeah, what's this blasphemy? So we get a short-range personnel battle in one of the passageways of aboard the Enterprise, where they are trying to reach the goal. They are trying to still achieve what they came here to do, and it's not going to work. We get the firefights back and forth where a little bit of stormtrooper-esque firing from one side to the other. Because let's be honest, at one point, Worf and Riker were not well undercover, and yet they were missed.
Well, like I said, they were trained on the Death Star, and I'll be right back. I gotta let the dogs out.
All right? And it makes you wonder, just if they had everyone armed before, if you had the security details like were set before and shown before arming up as they were initially leaving the Romulan system, why are so few people actually available to take care of this threat? Like, why does it seem like there's only the Federation personnel, the Starfleet personnel, from one side of the corridor and not the other? Why aren't they trying to encircle the known number of intruders that are aboard the ship? Oh, Nikki, I can have fun by myself. Wait a minute, I wasn't supposed to say that aloud. Never mind! Oh, yes. It's almost like the ability of someone to shoot another is so dependent on the plot. And not in a good way.
Okay, I'm back. Now we have the. Am I caught up to where you're at?
Yep. Well, I was mainly still criticizing the internal battle tactics, but throughout all of this, we're still getting everything beaten up, and you get to a point where the Enterprise has nothing. There, you actually have a part of the bridge taken out in one of the passes, and
dead bodies everywhere floating out into space.
And it makes you wonder how someone at the con was sucked out, but Troy is fine. Data you can understand because of his strength.
Yeah.
But Picard had nothing in front of him. Why wasn't he taken further along?
It's the magic of the captain's chair.
It's the magic of plot. Let's be honest there. It's the magic of plot. And so
And here comes the force field activating finally.
Yep, we get the activation, and then now we end up getting that view of the scimitar through the opening as it becomes a standoff. Or Riker's having his battle with the Viceroy in the Jeffries tubes at the lower decks of the ship.
Troy goes to hop over to the con to take over.
Yep. Next, and
Shinzon being loading. Audio only communication, because I can't imagine why there wasn't video. Red shirt. Oh, it would be yellow shirt now. You know, TNG era.
Gold.
Yellow. Let's not be too pedantic. I mean, otherwise we'll have to start criticizing every plot armor.
Oh, I know. Let's go ahead and see. So, when they see the scimitar just there, Picard recognizes what's going on. He wants to look me in the eye. We got him. He thinks he knows exactly what I'm going to do. Geordi, divert all power to the engines. Take it from life support if you have to. Give me everything you've got. And after that hail, after that is all set, is when we get the hail. Deanna, stand by. Open the channel. To which Shinzon tauntingly, I hope you're still alive, Jean-Luc. Oh yes, I am. Don't you think it's time to surrender? Why should the rest of your crew have to die? Shinzon, I don't think I ever told you about my first academy evaluation. In particular, I was thought to be extremely overconfident. Captain, as much as I enjoy listening to you talk, I really think that... And cuts communication off right there. And with the text command that was sent to Deanna at the helm, Picard orders Deanna to engage after letting the entire crew know, all hands, brace for impact. And it takes Shinzon a moment, as the Enterprise is now accelerating with all the power that they have towards the Scimitar. It takes Shinzon a moment to realize what's going on, to which he finally orders an evasive maneuver, which doesn't really help.
By the time he realizes it's going to take a bit for the Scimitar to get moving in the direction he needs it to go,
it's a bit too late. It's
almost like it handles like a pig.
A massive ship like that and full stop and needing to get momentum going? Yeah, it's easier to move a body already in motion than to get one started and then move. And we get... and yes, as Nikki had already stated, Troy crashes the Enterprise yet again. Although this time she was commanded to. I mean, a ramming maneuver, while it can be effective, sometimes is a last-ditch effort. But this is where things end up amping up. At this point, we get the impact. We get some wonderful shots of the Enterprise trying to become one with the Scimitar, where it is trying to let it know just how much you hurt my feelings. I'm going to show you what it's like inside of you.
Nah, I'll leave that one alone. I might get Nikki too excited.
And with this, I actually wonder what the end game of Picard initially was thought to be, because after this he does end up trying to order the self-destruct sequence after the two ships are together. And what do you know? Auto-destruct is offline.
Yeah, did you saw Icarus's thing?
Yes. Icarus, well played, sir. Well played. But I will give the art department this. If you notice, there are bits of debris that are actually staying within what could be seen as a gravitational field of the two ships. It's not just flying off willy-nilly, given the impact that happened. It's almost like when they want to, they recognize that physics are a thing.
You mean ships that generate an artificial gravity might be able to keep something attracted to them? What?
Shocking, I know.
Well, the way I look at this is Picard is remembering his days as Locutus, and he's trying to assimilate.
Oh, God. But at this point, we start to get a bit of a slow amp up in things with the end. Because after everything comes quiet, and we see just how entwined the two ships are, Shinzon orders all power into engines and a full reverse to separate, to back up. And we get that actual wonderful view of that change.
Oh, yeah.
And because of the jostling in one manner and now going back the other way, this is what actually helps the fight between Riker and the Viceroy down in the Jefferies tubes and the service access of the Enterprise.
And that's a scary face on Riker.
Now you know why that ensign was running away from him in season 7 outtake.
They have their... Here you have the separation. That's only minor damage. I mean, it can be buffed out on both ships.
Just a little bit of pain.
Where's Mako when you need him?
Yeah.
And then in the struggle as they separate, Riker manages to kick the Viceroy free.
The ultimate freedom. Death. After...
Sorry, now I'm thinking of the Offspring song from Duel's comment.
Yep.
No, but I believe USAA has boat insurance. Oh no, they got rid of boat insurance. So, because I actually had a USA insurance person come through, and he was complaining that he had to go to Geico.
Nice.
Yeah.
Geico is overrated at times.
Yeah.
But so we get the conclusion of one battle. We get the progressing separation of the two ships, and Shinzon realizing, well, I'm fucked. So if I'm fucked, we're all fucked. And ends up ordering the deployment of the weapon targeting the Enterprise.
Now, what was that weapon again? What did it do?
Oh, it pretty much disintegrated all organic biological material very rapidly. Almost like what's happening to him already.
Oh, those are some nasty cataracts, man. Should have got LASIK when you had the chance.
Yeah, and
Still prettier than Reds, though.
yeah, I could say that. And
So, Furball didn't capture the right scene, but you know, they're the right frame from the scene. This is basically just the magnification of the nice little easy button.
Mm-hmm.
Be nice if the I wonder if Staples does have a giant easy button in their corporate offices that you can just walk up and press.
If they have enough nerds in there, yes, they do. But so we get the initial power-up sequence, which, of course, being the ship-based one, it's not as easy or quick as the portable. But recognizing what's going on the ship, Picard does ask Geordi how long until he can fire. At which they find out they have approximately 7 minutes. When the targeting arms are fully deployed, the matrix on the bridge will relay the Thaleron radiation to the firing points at the tips. No one on the Enterprise will survive. To which Troy points out, he'll kill you. It's not about me anymore. And Picard orders a site-to-site transport. And
conveniently after that, what happens?
Well, it was so Data was trying to interrupt it. Data was trying to get to go in place of the captain. To which Deanna tries to say, "Let him go." LaForge, after the transportation, more of his panel shorts out and says, "That's it. Transporters are down." Data at that point, who has already made up his mind, orders Counselor Troy to assume command and for Geordi to come with them. At this point, we end up jumping to Picard going badass on the scimitar, trying to make his way to the bridge to confront Shinzon himself, and we get the most simple goodbye in Star Trek, where Geordi knows what Data is going to do, obviously, because they come to one of the breaches where they can see the scimitar. Geordi activates a force field behind where Data is standing, so Data can actually get a running start to the end, and Geordi deactivates the emergency force field at the end of the corridor just as Data's getting to it. So Data can go all Superman and transport from one ship to the other without the need for a transporter.
Come on, you gotta admit, you want to go into space just to do something like this yourself. In a spacesuit, obviously, but you know.
What is the margin of error and correction if the alignment is slightly off?
It just depends on the distance between the two targets, but you know.
You really have to be on point. You really have to be close with your trajectory to get to where you want to go. And through this, we get Shinzon admiring his coming demise, as well as him seeing it as the demise of Picard, with the unnecessary addition of others as well. Yeah, oh yeah, Icarus, he is quite literally jumping ship. And throughout the time on the ship, we are getting the wonderful Austin Powers-esque countdown of 4 minutes to firing sequence. And Data...
Hey, look, you made it.
Data, completing his Superman-esque travel, does manage to grab a hold of something and get aboard the scimitar himself. Shinzon is going through trying... pretty much biding time and filling in before we get the wonderful implementation of what this movie actually does to the franchise. Because Picard literally blows through a door to get onto the bridge. And in the ensuing initial fight, does take out some of the Remans after noticing where the actual Matrix was. And Shinzon is still... he's having growing pains. Yeah, that's what we'll call them. They're growing pains.
I thought it was IBS.
Tomato. He might have Crohn's. We never know.
Does he have lupus too? He might have gotten that from a vaccine injection.
We're not even going there with that one. But amongst all this, we get Picard somehow showing off to be quite the badass and taking out 1, 2, 3, 4... I think it was like half a dozen Reman foot troops. And here, to the point where he got surprised by one, and instead of using the emitter end of the phaser rifle, he's using it like a club.
Hey, it might have jammed on him, you know? I mean, it's not like it's, just particles of light.
Well, no, Nadion radiation. The phaser isn't just photons. But so we get the exacerbated old man fight up the stairs as Picard's trying to get up to stop the whole thing, and Shinzon is just trying to delay him just enough so it still goes off. But it doesn't work. We actually...
You have to admire the beauty of the double helix going in on itself in this.
Wouldn't this be a quadruple helix in a way?
Well, at that point, yeah, because it doubles back on itself. But the point that it starts out as a double helix going up and then curving back down in itself to make almost a perpetual motion machine, so to speak.
Yeah. So, with that going on, we got so much more left. We get the one-on-one battle between the two, and as such, we are still getting that progression as the countdown keeps getting closer.
And here's the tips for you there. Who was asking if they get just the tips?
If they want just the tip, well,
Yeah.
that's
Burns.
That's quite the tip for you, Burns. Are you sure you can handle it?
Hey, it's got a ring, so it's got to be a good tip.
Was that? If you like it, you should put a ring on it.
Pretty much.
And through this fight, we get yet another view of Shinzon's affinity for bladed weapons. Except for when it gets tossed into the Thaleron intermix and goes cup.
Now, at that point, I know that it wasn't messing with organic matter per se, but
kind of makes you wonder, why the fuck did it do that to
a knife and not the clothes?
Yeah, exactly. Why did it affect a knife, but not the clothing?
Oh, I know what it is. The blades were made with trilobite DNA. Fossilized trilobites. Now here's a good shot of the weapon you're talking about, the knife you're talking about.
The smaller one, yes.
Yeah.
Shinzon...
Dude, you gotta lay off the PCP, man.
Shinzon, like all over-enthusiastic enemies who are ultimately their own demise, goes rushing at Picard and ends up, getting stuck. What is that? Stick 'em with the pointy end, Arya? Well, it's kind of easy to do when the enemy does a lot of the work for you. And
Hold on. I never noticed how he was holding the knife in that scene.
Uh-huh.
What?
Uh-huh.
Oh, God. Has he ever handled a knife before?
Probably not. At least not in a combat situation, not like that. And through this, with Shinzon being impaled, most people, they're stuck like that, they just stop. But no, not the psychopaths. The psychopaths see that and are like, oh, okay.
Let me have some more.
Let me pull myself onto it further to get close to you. Because if I'm going to die, I'm going to try to choke you as I'm doing it. Oh, come on.
I've seen more convincing sweat. No, never mind. I'm not going to go there.
I will give this, though. The prosthetics that they added to Tom Hardy to make the nose and chin look close enough to Patrick Stewart's.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, you guys get a brownie point for that one. But that's what? 2 out of the entire movie?
And the bulging veins here, I mean, that's semi-convincing.
Yeah.
Semi-convincing.
Too veiny can be a problem. And with that, we get Data coming in last minute. There he is. And we get Thaleron intermix level complete, so just in time. The mix is complete, so it is getting ready to fire. Data runs up, and we get 30 seconds to firing sequence. And without a word, Data puts the prototype emergency transportation device on Picard and sets it off. And Picard is transported away, in which Data simply says goodbye. Data then turns as the countdown is going 10, 9, 8. Gets all the way down to 3, not 1, 3 this time. And Data fires his phaser into the Matrix, and the scimitar explodes.
And somehow the Enterprise is just far enough away to be safe.
It was moving at the speed of plot.
She looks like she's gonna sneeze.
It was a good timing on that one there, Furball.
So then you have, unbeknownst to everybody on the bridge, somebody's appeared out of nowhere, like he was transported.
Yep, Picard is back.
There you see the more of the explosion.
Yep.
Even more of the explosion.
Again.
Oh wait,
Good visuals, and people finally turn around and notice that Picard is back. And Troy asks, Data? And Picard just shakes his head no.
Lord Burns. I thought they destroyed that.
Is an Iconian gateway, not a door. Get your nerd terminology right.
Next thing you know, he's going to say the doctor came in and saved Data.
That would be more plausible than what we end up getting.
So then Riker comforts Troy, yada yada yada. Geordi realizes he's lost his best friend.
And then a hail comes in.
Cards.
To which Picard initially orders on screen. Oh. Oops. Open a channel. And it is Commander Dinatra of the Valdor. We're dispatching shuttles with medical personnel and supplies. Thank you, Commander.
And then I'll be in my ready room.
Yep, well, with Dinatra mentioning that you've earned a friend in the Romulan Empire today, Captain. I hope the first of many. Valdor out. and this really is quite apt. Geordi, prepare the shuttle bay for arrivals. They don't know our procedures. Just open the doors. And that's when Picard ends up going off into his ready room. And now, a bit of time later, we are cut back to a crew lounge with Picard and the rest of the command staff as Picard hands out glasses of wine, which Picard offers the toast to absent friends, to family. Which Troy, being the buzzkill she has to, mentions that it's Data. And Riker, being so quintessential for him, he actually does what most people in a healthy part of the grieving process would do. He recalls the first time that he actually met Data 15 years ago. The first time I saw Data, he was leaning against a tree in the holodeck, trying to whistle. Funniest thing I ever saw. No matter what he did, he couldn't get the tune right. And Riker was trying to remember the song, but he couldn't. Here's a question. Does anyone remember the song that Data was trying to whistle in the holodeck during Encounter at Farpoint?
I know it, but I won't say it.
Yeah.
You missed everything, Road No Last Name. You missed everything.
You missed the horror. Let's just say that, the horror. But now, with the Enterprise now being in dry dock, getting appropriate, extensive repairs.
I do like how they use the term dry dock.
mean, it essentially is. Granted, it's a repair station. It is the equivalent of a dry dock for modern Navy. And with Picard in his ready room, the chime comes off, and Picard invites in who it was, and it's Riker, already with the 4th pip on his collar. Permission to disembark, sir. Granted. And you get this actual fitting exchange and goodbye between not just colleagues but friends.
Brothers, actually.
I was getting to that. Because the relationship really is so complete and nuanced. They weren't just colleagues. They weren't just friends. They really did become brothers to a point. And a scene that belongs in a better movie.
You mean like one previous to this?
Yes. Now imagine this at the end of Insurrection. That would have been a more fitting end and a more fitting transition for everything going forward. And after this touching farewell, we get yet another reason why I wanted to punch the screen. Because we get the interaction between Picard and B4, where you get it harkens back to the end of Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan, the funeral scene, and what Kirk was saying about Spock.
Yeah.
Of all the souls that I've encountered in my travels, his was the most human. To take and try to rob from such an iconic Trek moment for something like this. And the ultimate sucker punch on top of it. How do they end it right before the credits roll? B4 aimlessly looking at a pad, poking around. Never saw the sun. Never saw the sun. Trying to get those lyrics out mindlessly.
Yep.
Which opened the fucking door to the series that is Star Trek Picard. What is fucking wrong with these people?
I don't need to say anything else. That's... yeah.
Had this movie been better written, had it been put together more in line with even just the prior movie, if it was on par with Insurrection, the franchise might not have been in such the place where it had to take 7 years off for the next installation, which this is how I'm going to end up. You know what? No. Jay, what are your final words? Because I'm going to save my bit for last, and then we will switch to the appropriate continuation of, shall we call it, the Bitch Fest?
Well, how do I want to put it? This movie is the reason why I think we got the Kelvin timeline. We all know that JJ has been a fan of Star Trek for a long time. And he, just like many other fans, and I'm assuming here on my part, felt that we got robbed of a actual good close to the series. But he didn't want to rehash that storyline, and he didn't actually want to rehash any of the original storylines. Yet, what did he do? We went from one bad Star Trek movie to arguably one of the worst reboots I have seen. And it's all because we got a crappy ending by somebody who knew nothing of the Star Trek Next Generation franchise. Hopefully we are taking a break from Star Trek for a while, because I really don't want to watch the Kelvin timeline yet. But if they were going to end with this and kill off Data, there should never have been B4. Ever. But by opening up the door with B4, you left open the potential for the series that shall not be named. And having watched that entire series, there are some good episodes to it, but there are many more bad ones. Next week's movie, and even though I won't be there, we're going to watch Down Periscope, just because we need some laughs. Or did we already watch that one?
Oh, no, we have watched Down Periscope, but...
We could watch McHale's Navy. Get the surface side of it.
No. This upcoming week on the Discord server for Entertainment Night, we are going to be voting again. It is not going to be a surprise for what movies are going to be put to everyone for their viewing pleasure. Because here's the thing. I think we can actually get some enjoyment out of the options that everyone's going to have. So for those who aren't already a member of the Discord server, go ahead and click that link in the chat. Go on and join the server. Make your voice known, because it will be, if it's not already posted, it will be posted tomorrow. What the voting options are going to be for Wednesday's movie viewing pleasure as part of our entertainment nights. And prior to that, we are actually getting close to finishing up the Clone Wars series from Star Wars, which will be doing the second to last viewing of that on Tuesday evening, followed by the continuation of proper Trek with The Next Generation on Thursday.
Oh, I have to address Rowan's no last name's comment here. So this movie is the Lee Harvey Oswald of Trek? No. This is the Red Dwarf android being the second gunman on the grassy knoll of Trek. But they saved Kennedy's life, and all hell broke loose.
If I were to compare this to something from another franchise, this is more like Aliens versus Predator for the Aliens franchise. It wasn't the end, but it was a sign of things to come. It opened the door. This movie, the ineptitude shown in handling this, the lazy insinuations and actions that went throughout, are the reason why there was a 7-year gap to the JJ verse, to the reboot. But there is one thing that I will give the JJ verse, just one piece of positive criticism for, that none of the continuation of the Trek franchise can even come close to getting in the same way. The JJ verse was released as, touted as, promoted as a reboot, a new take on Star Trek. Same characters, different universe, different timeline. They said that from the beginning. So they are actually insulated from a lot of negative criticisms because of changes that they made and everything. Because, hey, let's face it, it's not the prime timeline. It's not in line with everything else, but they were nice enough to admit that from the fucking beginning.
Well, all I have to say is Star Trek Into Darkness is an awful lot like some other movie that I know from the Star Trek verse. I just can't quite put my finger on it.
Yeah, but we are going to get ready and move this on over to the more open and free-flowing bit, because I need a reason to go ahead and down this bottle that's in front of me right now, so let's go ahead and make it a free-for-all party. Give us about 7 minutes, and we will be back live on Veterans Talk Weekly, so hang in there, and we will be right back with everyone.